Most people think the whole state of Texas is one big flood zone. And after Hurricane Harvey buried Houston under 50 inches of rain and $125 billion in damage, you can understand why. But that is only half of Texas, and it is the half everyone already knows. There is another Texas, high and dry, where a hurricane has never once reached and floodwater has nowhere to go. One of these towns scores a flat 0 for flood risk in the most flood-battered state in America. One sits nearly a mile above the sea, gets snow in the winter, and lies under the darkest skies in the country. And one has homes selling for less than a new pickup truck. The people who live in these places watch hurricane season like a nature documentary, fascinated and bone dry. These are 12 Texas towns that almost never flood, even during hurricane season. If you read the FEMA map before you buy, you are going to love this one. Let's get into it. Number 12, Abilene. Population, around 130,000, median home price, right around $200,000, and it sits at roughly 1,700 feet above sea level, a full 350 miles inland from the Gulf. For context, Galveston sits at about 7 feet. So Abilene is looking down at the Texas coast the way a rooftop looks down at a swimming pool. This is the hub of a whole region West Texans just call the Big Country, and it has real substance for a town this dry: 3 universities, a symphony, and Dyess Air Force Base flying B-1 bombers out over the plains. It even calls itself the storybook capital of America, with bronze statues of Dr. Seuss and Curious George scattered through a downtown built around a restored 1920s movie palace. The reason it stays dry is simple. It is high, it is inland, and it only gets around 2 feet of rain a year, a fraction of what falls on Houston. Most of the city sits in FEMA Zone X, meaning flood insurance is not even required. The honest trade-off is that you are trading hurricanes for the other Texas menace. This is hail and tornado country, so you dodge the water and take on the wind. But your living room stays dry in September. The next town keeps you just as high and dry and adds one of the strangest natural claims to fame in the state. Number 11, San Angelo. A city of about 100,000 people sitting at roughly 1,900 feet in the Concho Valley with a median home price around $230,000. San Angelo's claim to fame is genuinely bizarre. The rivers here produce concho pearls, purple and pink freshwater pearls found in native mussels, sold in jewelry shops you will find nowhere else on earth. The town grew up around Fort Concho, an old frontier cavalry post that is still standing, and today it has a lovely river walk, a wall of downtown murals, and Goodfellow Air Force Base anchoring the economy. It was once the wool and mohair capital of the nation, and San Angelo State Park along the reservoir gives it real outdoor life, with an official Texas longhorn herd and bison grazing on the shore. Now San Angelo does have the Concho River running right through it, so this one comes with a real asterisk. The river corridor itself carries flood risk, and the city has flooded near the water in the past, but the reservoirs upstream, O.C. Fisher and Twin Buttes, were built specifically to hold back that water, and the elevated neighborhoods away from the river sit comfortably in Zone X. The rule here is the same one that runs through this entire list. Buy up on the high ground, not down in the river bottom, and pull the parcel-specific flood map before you sign anything. This is exactly the kind of homework almost nobody does before they buy, and it is the whole reason this channel exists. So hit subscribe, because the towns from here up are where this gets genuinely wild. The next one is the cheapest place on the entire list. Number 10, Sweetwater. If you have ever wanted to own a home for less than the price of a new pickup truck, Sweetwater is listening. This Nolan County town of about 10,600 people sits at roughly 2,100 feet, and the median home price is still comfortably under $90,000. That is not a typo. Sweetwater sits at the center of one of the largest concentrations of wind turbines in the entire country, the blades turning across the mesas around town 24 hours a day, because this high, open, semi-arid plateau catches wind the way the coast catches hurricanes. It is also home to the world's largest rattlesnake roundup every March, which is exactly as wild as it sounds, and not for everyone. The wind industry alone pumps steady money and jobs into a county that would otherwise be shrinking, and technicians move here just to service the thousands of turbines. The elevation and the dryness keep serious flooding away, and flood insurance out here is cheap when it is required at all. The honest downside is that Sweetwater is small and remote, the amenities are basic, and the same wind that spins those turbines drives relentless dust and a drought that never really breaks. But for high, dry, and almost free, few places in America compete. The next town has an actual mountain in the middle of the flattest country you have ever seen. Number 9, Big Spring. Big Spring sits at about 2,400 feet, a town of roughly 26,000 people named after a real spring that drew travelers and buffalo herds for centuries. And rising right out of the flat plains beside it is Scenic Mountain, a genuine mountain with a state park on top, in a part of Texas most people picture as a pool table. Homes here run well under $200,000. The economy leans on oil and a refinery, and the town has that hard, honest West Texas character that either grabs you or does not. The spring itself is preserved in a park. The same water Comanche bands and buffalo herds once fought over long before the railroad arrived, and today a veterans hospital and the rail line still anchor the town. On flooding, Big Spring is about as safe as inland Texas gets, high, dry, and far from any coast or major river, sitting in minimal risk flood zones across most of the city. The trade-off is that the whole local economy rises and falls with the price of oil and the fate of that one refinery. But you will never watch storm surge come up your street, because the nearest storm surge is 300 miles away and half a mile downhill. The next town gets less rain in an entire year than Houston can get in a single bad weekend, and it turned that hard, dry life into a Hollywood legend. Number 8, Odessa. Welcome to the Permian Basin, the beating heart of the American oil industry, where Odessa sits at nearly 2,900 feet and only sees about 14 inches of rain in an entire year. 14 inches. Houston can get that in a single bad weekend. This is a city of around 115,000, with a median home price near $250,000, and it is famous far beyond Texas as the town behind Friday Night Lights, the Permian Panthers, and the near-religious devotion to high school football. It also has a meteor crater on its edge, the second largest in the United States, and a statue of the world's largest jackrabbit, because West Texas commits to a bit. It even has a full-size replica of Stonehenge and a version of the Globe Theater on a university campus, because if the desert will not hand you scenery, you build your own. With that little rainfall and that much elevation, real flooding is close to a non-event here, and the flood maps show it. What you are buying instead is dust, wind, and economy chained to the oil price, and the boom and bust swings that come with it. But if your single biggest fear is water in your house, Odessa barely knows what that means. The next town is where the oil money actually lives. Number 7, Midland. 20 miles up the road from Odessa, Midland sits at about 2,800 feet, and it is the white-collar half of the Permian Basin, the town where the oil executives and the money settled. That shows up in the price. The median home here runs closer to $330,000, the priciest of the West Texas cities on this list, because when oil booms, Midland booms with it. This is where George W. Bush grew up, and the town wears that history proudly. The skyline is a cluster of glass oil towers rising straight out of the flat plain, visible for miles, and the commemorative Air Force keeps a fleet of restored World War II warbirds flying out of the local airport. Like its sister city, Midland is bone dry, high, and hundreds of miles from any hurricane, with flood risk that barely registers on the federal maps. The honest picture is that Midland is expensive and volatile, tied hand and foot to a single industry, and when the oil price crashes, so does the local economy. But the ground stays dry through all of it, boom or bust, and no storm from the Gulf has the strength left to reach it. Now we climb even higher into the biggest dry city on the whole list, and if you are enjoying this, tap that like button, because it genuinely helps more people find these places. The next town is the biggest, cheapest, driest college city in the country that almost nobody thinks to move to. Number 6, Lubbock. Now we are up on the Llano Estacado, the great high plain of the South Plains, where Lubbock sits at around 3,200 feet, a real city of 265,000 people built around Texas Tech University and 40,000 students. And the median home price is still only about $220,000, which for a city this size, with this many jobs, is almost unheard of anywhere else in the country. This is the birthplace of Buddy Holly, the center of a growing Texas wine country, and the commercial capital of a cotton empire. The high plains around it have quietly become the largest grape-growing region in Texas, feeding most of the state's wineries, and the National Ranching Heritage Center preserves dozens of original frontier buildings hauled in from across the West. It gets under 20 inches of rain a year, and its elevation keeps hurricanes in the realm of things that happen to other people. Here is the honest asterisk for Lubbock. The high plains are dotted with playa lakes, natural shallow depressions that fill up in a heavy downpour, and in an extreme rain, streets and low spots can flood fast. So even here, you buy away from the playas and the low ground. But major house-swallowing flooding is not the Lubbock story. Dust storms, hail, and the occasional tornado are the real local weather. The next town holds the crown for the safest big city in the entire state. Number 5, Amarillo. If you want the single strongest number on this entire list, here it is. Amarillo, up in the Panhandle at roughly 3,600 feet, has been ranked one of the safest cities in Texas from natural disasters, and it posts a flood risk score of essentially 0. 0. In a state defined by water disasters, a city of 200,000 people scores a flat 0 for flooding. It sits nearly 400 miles from the Gulf, gets around 20 inches of rain a year, and has no coast and no major river running through its heart to overflow. This is the land of Cadillac Ranch, Old Route 66, and the Big Texan Steak Ranch, where the 72-ounce steak is free if you can finish it in an hour. 10 Cadillacs stand buried nose down in a field west of town, spray-painted by every tourist who stops, and the whole Panhandle economy runs on cattle, wind, and agriculture, rather than anything the Gulf can reach. It has real jobs, real hospitals, and a cost of living that makes the coast look insane. The honest trade-off is that Amarillo sits squarely in Tornado Alley, so you trade the hurricane and the flood for the twister and the hailstone. But on the specific question this whole video is about, flooding, Amarillo is about as safe as a real American city gets. The next town is where Texas stops looking like Texas entirely. Number 4, Canyon. Just south of Amarillo, at about 3,570 feet, sits Canyon, a college town of around 16,000 people built around West Texas A&M with a median home price near $300,000. And right on its doorstep is the thing almost no one outside Texas knows exists. Palo Duro Canyon, the second largest canyon in the entire United States, 800 feet deep and stretching for over 100 miles, the Grand Canyon of Texas, carved into the flat plains where you would never expect it. Every summer, an outdoor musical called Texas plays on the canyon floor under the stars. The town is also home to the Panhandle Plains Historical Museum, the largest history museum in the state, and the red rock walls of the canyon glow at sunset in a way that genuinely stops first-time visitors in their tracks. Here is the important part for this list. The canyon floor, cut by the Prairie Dog Town fork of the Red River, absolutely floods. But the town of Canyon sits up on the high rim, dry and elevated, watching the weather happen below it. That is the whole trick of this place, all the drama of the canyon, none of the water risk, because you live on top of it, not in it. The canyon floor does the flooding, so the town up on the rim never has to, and hurricanes and storm surge are science fiction at this elevation. The next town might be the strangest place in Texas, and it is nearly a mile high. Number 3, Marfa. Out in the high desert of far west Texas, at nearly 4,800 feet, sits Marfa, a town of barely 1,800 people that somehow became one of the most famous art destinations in America. Decades ago, the minimalist artist Donald Judd moved out here and turned old army buildings into world-class art installations, and the art world followed. Today, you will find the Prada Marfa sculpture standing alone in the desert, the mysterious Marfa lights that appear on the horizon at night, and some of the darkest, clearest skies in the country. This is the country where the old movie Giant was filmed, and today collectors fly in from both coasts to tour the Chinati Foundation, sleep in restored trailers, and drive out to stand in front of a fake Prada store in the middle of nowhere. Because of all that art world attention, homes here cost more than you would expect for the region, often north of $300,000. On flooding, Marfa is about as safe as it gets in the United States. This is high, arid desert, hundreds of miles from the Gulf, where serious rain is a rare event and a hurricane is unthinkable. The honest downside is real. Marfa is tiny, remote, expensive for what it is, and water itself is scarce out here, which is its own long-term worry. But floodwater in your home is simply not part of the equation. The next town is the gateway to Big Bend and the last real town before the mountains take over. Number 2, Alpine. At about 4,475 feet, Alpine is the largest town in the entire Big Bend region, a high desert community of around 6,000 people built around Sul Ross State University, ranching, and a surprising little arts scene. This is what a Texas mountain town actually looks like, cooler than the rest of the state, ringed by peaks, with clean, dry air and a pace of life a world away from Houston. It has one of the most beautiful small ballparks in America in Coconut Field, a real gallery scene, and it serves as the supply hub for the whole Big Bend, so it carries more services than a town its size usually would. Median home prices run around $100,000 below the state average, and the whole region trades in wide open space. On the core question of this video, Alpine is almost untouchable, high, arid, and about as far from a hurricane as you can get, and still be in Texas, with flood risk that barely appears on the maps outside the desert washes. The honest trade-off is remoteness. You are hours from a major city, hours from a big hospital, and the isolation is real. But you will trade that isolation for skies that never send a storm surge and a valley that has never met a hurricane. And that brings us to number 1, the highest town in the entire state of Texas, a place most Texans do not even believe exists. Number 1, Fort Davis. Sitting at 5,050 feet in the Davis Mountains, Fort Davis is the highest town in Texas, and it is the purest answer to this entire question. A town of around 1,000 people, it is so high and so far removed from the coast that it does not just avoid hurricanes, it avoids the entire climate the rest of Texas lives in. It gets cool summers, it gets snow in the winter, and it sits beneath the McDonald Observatory, one of the great astronomical observatories on Earth, perched on a nearby peak, because these are some of the darkest, clearest night skies left in the continental United States. The observatory runs public star parties that draw people from across the country, and Davis Mountain State Park wraps the town in real mountain scenery, oak and pine instead of mesquite and cactus. Down in town, you will find the old frontier cavalry post that gave the place its name, still standing, and a main street that feels frozen a century back. Homes here are limited and vary widely, but you are buying something almost no other Texas town can offer: real elevation, real seasons, and a hurricane risk that is functionally zero. The honest reality is that Fort Davis is tiny and remote. The nearest real services are down in Alpine, about 25 minutes away, and jobs and healthcare are thin. Flash flooding can happen in the mountain canyons in a hard desert rain, so even here you respect the low ground. But this is the town where hurricane season is just something that happens on television, a mile above the sea, under the stars. That is why Fort Davis is number one. So there they are, 12 Texas towns where floodwater is somebody else's problem. One quick truth before you go: no place is completely floodproof. So always pull the FEMA map for the exact address before you buy. Now, you just saw how to dodge the hurricanes by going high and dry. But there is a whole wave of people who gave up on hurricane country altogether. Florida retirees, done with the storms and the crushing insurance bills, who quietly packed up and fled to a handful of towns in South Carolina. I broke down exactly which towns they ran to and why, and it is on your screen right now. Subscribe, and I will see you there.